Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, it is go time. Rob Browne here on this Tuesday, October 25th, heading into week 9 of the college football season. There's a lot to cover. You look around you, coming at you all hours of the day, rumors, innuendo, some facts mixed in there. We're going to cover it all today, next 2 hours, as we do every Monday through Saturday. Rob Browne broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. It is trying to rain here. We need it desperately. The city with a smile. Red River Ford Toyota is open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Remember, on Saturdays, good day to bring your truck, car, SUV in. The service department opens at 7 in the morning until 12:30 noon. Great folks to work with, 25 service bays. They will get you out in quick fashion. Jimmy Hodge with us up in Knoxville. David Schultz batting in the leadoff position down in Mobile, WNSP, America's first all-sports FM station. The Tunnel, honk your horn when Dave's on. We're going to cover a lot with him. Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers Georgia for us. We'll weigh in. Top of hour number 2. Brad Logan, Logan Media Network, talks all things Mississippi, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Jackson State's got game day coming this weekend. And in the 4th segment, Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, will weigh in from Tuscaloosa to talk about Alabama. They rebounded with the win. That was the first touchdown Mississippi State has scored in Starkville since 2014. I think they went over there as the number 1 team in the country in the first playoff rankings. It's been a while, but anyway, Alabama wins 30-7 in that one. So let's get going right now. David Schultz, there are a lot of football games that were just played. Your takeaway from those, and let's peek ahead to this week because we got some good rivalry games coming up, and I know everybody is looking ahead for Super Weekend, November 5th.
Where do you want to start? I mean, Alabama looked okay, right? They certainly played well in the first half, not so great in the second half. Defensively, they were really good. It doesn't feel like Mike Leach is making any of the adjustments. Could have been a 7-6 ball game early on if they go for a field goal and make a field goal. Maybe that's why they didn't attempt a field goal early on. But you look at the statistics and take away the score, it's relatively even because Mississippi State did a good job of, controlling the ball and going up and down the field. They just couldn't finish. So we'll see that LSU team is looking pretty good and did a whole show yesterday on coaching. And you can see how Brian Kelly is coaching outside of, the special teams. But, they look like a different team than they were against Tennessee. They look like a different team than they were against Florida State. Some other teams that, that coaching comes into play. I can't believe that South Carolina has more talent than A&M. They just don't. There's no way. I'm not sure outside of Shane Rattler that anybody for South Carolina would start for A&M. And yet they beat them. Yeah. I can't imagine. Last year, Miami beat Duke 47-10. This year, they lost to them 45-20. Are you telling me there's anybody on Duke who would start for Miami, including my guy, Riley Leonard? I doubt it. So coaching is coming into play here. And we got some good ball games this week, but now we got, 2 weeks before that LSU-Alabama game, which, I got an Alabama alum as a producer, and he's very confident that Alabama is going to go into Tiger Stadium and beat them. And I don't think that Alabama is going to have their way with LSU. They may win, but I got a feeling that's coming down to the end.
Yeah. Well, let's go back. Miami, look at last year. NIL was around. It's around this year. I do think, though, programs that are hemorrhaging with NIL money and giving these kids a bunch of money basically for doing next to nothing. Nobody's going to say it, so I'll say it. It is fracturing locker rooms. Coaches are not going to come out and say it. They hate it because, I mean, not naming names, but I do know this. There are coaches, they'll tell you, instead of the kids coming in and saying, hey, Coach Schultz, I want to get better as a defensive back, or I want to improve as an offensive lineman, they're playing you off of other schools. Well, this school's giving me another $25,000, and this is all I'm getting here. Well, son, you've yet to play a snap. You're a freshman. Well, I'm leaving then. That's what they're dealing with. We've created a drama, a soap opera. A&M, we heard about all the NIL money with them. They've got everything in the world you need to win. Money, tradition. They've got incredible
tradition.
Well,
tradition of what?
Well, here's
no
the
tradition. They have no tradition.
Here's my tradition. A tradition of loyal fans, but not tradition of winning. In this millennium, they've only had one double-digit win season. That's what I'm saying. And the media just looks over there and sees 30 million people that we know of in Texas. Now they're bringing in Texas, and they're thinking that automatically will translate to success. So they pick them high. I did not buy into the A&M hype, but I do think NIL is causing some dissension in locker rooms.
Yeah. It sounded like you just described the Jimmy Sexton process to me. You know, someone that has a couple of good years, so another school comes calling, and all of a sudden they get a big raise. All right, so everybody from Mario Cristobal has done that to Nick Saban has done that. I think Billy Napier did that with UL. So that's nothing new. They don't like it because all the money is not going to them, or it's not going to the school. It's going into the kids' pockets, and so that's something new, and that the coaches are going to have to get used to. But again, I didn't watch any of the Miami Duke game. I don't know what you can do about 8 turnovers, right? I can't imagine that's all on the coaches. The players are still playing. So 8 turnovers is a little bit tough to overcome. But we'll see where and we're still very young in the NIL deal. You know, the problem is with the NIL deal, and you get all those 5 stars going to A&M, that eventually someone's not going to play and they're going to transfer. That's where that's going to happen, is that you get all these, these number 1 recruiting classes, and then they realize there's not enough spots to play, and then they're going to transfer. That's different than, dealing with a fractured locker room because of the money. You can only play so many offensive linemen. You can only play so many defensive linemen, although those can rotate. You can only play so many running backs. And so somewhere along, and you can only play really 1 quarterback. And so, eventually that's going to even out. So if you get too many 5 stars, right, at the same position, like defensive line, then that's going to be a problem down the road for A&M. So we'll see. Everyone's telling me to wait for the number 1 recruiting class to get on the field, but Jimbo in 19, 20, and 21 had top 10 recruiting classes. I don't think Carolina's had a top 10 recruiting class in ever. So,
that's a great
we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I just can tell you, in 31 plus years in private client group wealth management, I have never, ever once had a wealthy family dole out money to 21, 22-year-old kids. They make them wait till they're 25.
They can dole out money to me.
Well, they just don't do it. and that's where this problem comes from. One more before we go to Jimmy. I was proud of your Syracuse Orange men. And I know it's frustrating for you, but dadgummit, they went on the road. They showed up. They didn't get the win, which is the most important job. But, look, that was a damn good football game, Dave. It was one of the best games to watch Saturday. It drove you crazy if you were a Clemson fan. I don't know if it exposed Clemson or it just showed that Syracuse is good. What was your take?
Well, DJ had a bad day. I don't know if he's played. I can't imagine he's played like that. His passes were short. They were wobbly. Syracuse made a couple of good catches on interceptions. They could not put them away when they had the chance. I'm just sitting here in the Schultz Bar and Grill watching on my own, and I literally said out loud on 3rd and 25, don't commit a stupid penalty, because I know my football team, and they committed a stupid penalty. Now, whether it was a penalty or not, that's a different story.
Yeah.
And then, of course, later on, obviously Clemson did a roughing the passer, and it wasn't called. But that one play changes the whole game, because you would have had a 21-10 lead heading into the 4th quarter, and the defense not all jacked up. I need 1 first down for Syracuse, and there's 13 minutes left. I need 2 first downs, and there's 11 minutes left, and there's a freshman quarterback that's got to go the length of the field, twice to get Clemson back in the game. Again, maybe I'm not paying attention enough, but I got high school kids here in Alabama that are bigger than the Syracuse defensive tackle. All right. Yeah. He's 5'11", 245. And yet, for a lot of it was not being pushed around, right? He must have a 5-star center and 2 5-star guards or 4-star guards. And this guy would have a tough time playing for the Sandland Spartans in Alabama. Meanwhile, for the Syracuse Orange in the ACC. So, they played okay, but they had plenty of mistakes. How do you not hand it off to Sean Tucker more than 5 times? Don't tell me that Clemson's doing a good job scheming against them. Your job is to figure out a scheme to, go to combat that scheme. Plus, how well were they scheming against him when he had 5 carries and 50 yards? So that's a pretty good average when he's average. And he didn't break off like a 30-yard run. He had a bunch of 10 to 12-yard runs. And then he made a mistake at the end of the game, screwing up with 25 seconds. You can't blame Garrett Schrader too much for the interception. He's just trying to make a play with 30 seconds left to go. It'd be nice if he, hit one of the outside receivers to try and, do a 50-50 ball instead of triple coverage, but the kid's just trying to make a play. Very frustrating because, just like I said on the other games, there's like 3 players on Syracuse that could be on Clemson. Yeah. Right? The kid who didn't play, Garrett Williams, the corner, all right, Sean Tucker, and probably Aronde Ganson. And that's it. And so, it's not 9 out of 10 times. Clemson would beat Syracuse like 97 out of 100 times. And that was one of the times that Syracuse probably should have beaten Clemson. Clemson played awful. The freshman kid came in and did okay. He made one great play on the 2-point conversion, but it's not like, he hit a huge pass play somewhere down the road. He almost threw a pick 6 that put Syracuse back in the lead. So the big thing he did was not make a mistake. Clemson kept on turning the ball over, and then when the kid came in, they stopped turning the ball over. So I appreciate you getting my blood pressure up here, 8 a.m. Central Time. Now I'm going to be pissed off for the rest of the day. Thank you, Rob.
Well, look, I'll just say this about Syracuse. DJ didn't have a bad day. Syracuse made him uncomfortable. You got to give credit. I look when I bet on these games and I pick games. I look for what you expose and what the takeaway is. I know you're frustrated. And look, Clemson has elite talent, but they're not playing in the last 3 years like an elite team, despite having a lot of elite talent on the roster. Jimmy, jump in here. You may be able to make some sense out of it. And also, Dave, thumbs up for the incredible job you do of covering high school football in Mobile and Baldwin County, man. I love it. I don't know of anybody I don't see on a sports radio doing a better job of putting it out on Twitter, Theodore, Saraland, all those. It's just, I love it. So thank you.
Jimmy, before you get in it, this was a crazy football game, right? It was number 1 versus number 3. We had, it was like a pooch kick, like a bend it like Beckham kickoff that ended up being an onside kick. We had a punter take a knee while he fumbled the snap, and we had an interception fumble on the same play, all in the first half. Yeah. Crazy. It was an insane football game. We had a punt return for a touchdown, and we had 2 missed extra points that in the end turns out to be the difference in the game. It was a sensational, I guess they say there was somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people there for a high school football game. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's what we love. Jimmy? Jimmy, come on in. Okay. Not hearing Jimmy right now, but okay. So Dave, when we talk about these high school games, I mean, that's where the recruits are coming from. Saraland, Theodore, Mobile, Baldwin County. There's always a debate. I've always looked at it. Those 2 counties versus Jefferson and Shelby County, which is Metro Birmingham. High school talent in the state of Alabama this year. There are 22 4-stars, 7 5-stars. You've seen a lot of high school football in your years in Louisiana and in Alabama. Top to bottom, which state you think puts out better players?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, this was supposed to be the year for Alabama, but all these kids are young, right? All the big players are young. Sterling Dixon out of Mobile Christian is a junior. Josh Flowers out of Baker, the cute quarterback, he's a junior. And then all the guys on Saraland, they're sophomores. KJ Lacey, sophomore, quarterback. Sante McWilliams, running back, sophomore. Ryan Williams, Hollywood Williams. The kid's already got a nickname. He's a sophomore. He's committed to Alabama. We'll see how long that lasts. I presume it will, but he can't commit. He can't sign anything for 2 years. And so, all these guys are really young. So we get to see them all again next year, right? And we get the playoffs coming up as well. I got Saraland again this weekend. So that'll be good. We probably have them again for the first round of the playoffs. And somewhere along the way, we'll probably see Saraland and Theodore going at it again. So that'll be a lot of fun. Louisiana's got a lot of talent. There's a relatively new school, LCA. A lot of them are playing. Some I think are playing for Alabama, and some are playing for LSU. I'm not even sure the school is 15 years old. Lafayette Christian Academy, and they're putting out a bunch of guys that are playing for LSU. So there's a bunch of, and Southside's got a new school. And there's in Lafayette alone, there's a bunch of bunch of talent. But then you got to go up to Shreveport and Alexandria as well. But yeah, there's a bunch of talent. Here's the difference is that LSU doesn't have another Power 5 school in the state to compete with, whereas Alabama has Auburn allegedly, and Georgia comes in, and Florida comes in, and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing about it. That's why the frustration of the Auburn fan base is there are all these great players in the state of Alabama this year, and where's Auburn? We heard last weekend all these coaches were going to be out on the road recruiting. So what? What now? That's what Alabama and Georgia do. Nick Saban and Kirby Smart in their sleep, and they've been getting whoever they want. And the only players Auburn's been getting lately have been the ones that Alabama processes out right before signing date, and that's unacceptable. I mean, normally Auburn's going to get in there and get a good many of those players. In Louisiana, you're right. The high school football down there, that Mississippi per capita puts out more players to the NFL than any state in America. Louisiana, right there. Alabama, it's the high school coaching, David. I mean, I know we're about to go to a break. We're going to come back. Jimmy is going to be back with us, but there's a lot to talk about. But it's the coaching. There's such an emphasis. You see a lot of these high school football staffs. They have 15 plus coaches out there full time. Strength training, development, academics. They make sure they've got all their schoolwork ready to go. That's why, you don't hear much about non-qualifiers anymore. Coach O had one they dropped the ball on. That's why, that can't happen anymore. It's hard to. We'll be right back with more David Schultz and Jimmy Hodge after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
It's another bomb being dropped out in College Station, man. It is a mess. Just got a good text from a listener down in Birmingham, said things are falling apart in College Station. I don't wish that. Again, they have great fans, a tradition of fan loyalty, but not the wins. I don't know what the problem is there, but it's a mess. But God, Dave, that high school football down there where you are in just ground zero for the best high school football around. So Jimmy, jump in here now.
Yeah, Dave, I wanted to go back to this Clemson Syracuse game, and I wanted to say I've seen Clemson 3 times this year. And unimpressive is the most polite description I can come up with as far as seeing them. Even in the opener against Georgia Tech, that was a 1-score game until early in the fourth quarter, and DJU escaped a sack and made a desperation little shovel to Shipley, I think, and he turned it into a big gain, and they went on to score there and, ended up being a blowout. But then against Wake Forest, I mean, the only difference in that game, it went to overtime, was that Clemson had 6'2" receivers and Wake Forest had 5'10" DBs. And they just made some catches in the end zone on some, just alley-oop throws, And in this game, I mean, Syracuse completely outplayed Clemson for the whole ball game. And to see that Clemson the Syracuse defensive line outmanned 30 pounds a man up front, and yet
Right.
Clemson just can't impose their will on them. And I'm just getting to the point. I'm just not sure how good DJU is. We just might be at the point they just have to go with the kid, Klubnik. Just like what happened with Trevor Lawrence and Kelly Bryant. I'm just not sure, but I will say that if Clemson was in the SEC, there's no question they'd be staring at multiple losses right now, in my mind. But they do have a lot of really good athletes. They obviously haven't meshed, but in the ACC, they can get by with it for the most part. And you hit on it too. Syracuse wasn't going to get a call at Clemson. You can bet on that.
No, that's right.
And
I mean, that's fine. I mean, you're right. Syracuse played a well of a football game, and I went back, and I'm sure I'm taking out my dislikes for the officials on Clemson, but no, I'm not sure Clemson's a top 10 team, right? I mean, Clemson's not going into Baton Rouge and beating LSU. I don't see that, right? And someone's arguing with me, well, Syracuse was exhausted at the end. LSU's not going to be exhausted at the end, not like Syracuse, and so TCU, Ole Miss, LSU, Michigan, Ohio State, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama. I mean, who's Clemson beating? They would have to play a lot better. But you're right. They could very, very well find themselves, if they go undefeated, it would be hard pressed to find them not in the playoff. And they very well could get embarrassed by whomever they play, whether it is a Michigan, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama. It's going to look a lot like those Notre Dame games, because Clemson is they are not on the same level as all these other teams. I'm not sure LSU does that to Ole Miss if the game is in Ole Miss, right? And I'm not sure if Clemson beats them, if that game's in Syracuse. So, Clemson was not that impressive. And you're talking that the Syracuse defensive line, they rushed 3. You got, it's 5 on 3, and they couldn't really, impose their will. We'll see. I would presume, give it up to Dabo. He was going to lose the ball game if he kept DJ in the ball game. So he made the change. And the young quarterback just didn't make any mistakes. He got sacked one time, but they got a late hit on the next play. So, still frustrating. You're not helping either, Jimmy. The blood pressure was starting to go down, and now it's back up again. So
Jimmy. Well, and furthermore, Dave, all the strongest teams are in Clemson's division. So as far as the ACC championship game goes, I mean, I don't see North Carolina with that defense being able to beat Clemson in a championship game. But anything can happen. I mean, they have improved, but hey, when you open the season giving up 42 points in the fourth quarter to App State and still winning the game, I mean, that's not a high bar.
Right. Well,
I think they still rank about 125th there.
Yeah, here's the thing about Syracuse that you don't want to see. I think their only tough road game may be Wake, because Notre Dame's coming to town and Florida State comes to Syracuse. You don't want to lose the same game twice. That was one of the good things that Les Miles did and good thing that Ed Orgeron did. Yes, we lost, but we can't lose the next game, right? And so South Alabama's going to face that this week with Arkansas State after a tough loss to Troy. You can't lose the Clemson game twice. You have at best, an average Notre Dame team coming into the Carrier Dome. And you need to beat Notre Dame. And, it can still be Syracuse goes 11-1, right? I mean, they're going to, maybe Wake will be favored, but they're favored against Notre Dame not by much. They could be favored against Florida State. They're nothing special. And so, let's not lose their composure. There's injuries. So hopefully some guys will come back, but, excuse me. But don't lose the same game twice. And bounce back and beat Notre Dame. Now, I'm really thrilled for Jackson State. They're getting game day. I presume if Syracuse had won that game and been in the top 10 and having Notre Dame, ESPN's going to take that chance to get Notre Dame because it's always NBC. Plus, the game is on ABC. So I'm presuming game day would have been in Central New York for the first time ever. But good for Jackson State and Prime, Coach Prime, and that'll be a heck of a show. But don't lose the same game twice. So hopefully Syracuse can bounce back and beat what, again, is an average Notre Dame team at best.
Dave, you got to ask yourself this question now. Alabama is the best football program in the state. After that, who is it? Troy? South Alabama?
Oh. Well, that's a good question. So Troy was one of more impressive games I've ever seen, because Troy didn't play all that well offensively. They did just barely enough, and kind of what I wanted to see Syracuse do, just get a couple of first downs and kick it away, right? Just flip the field. And that's what Troy did. And South Alabama couldn't run it. I'm not sure what adjustments you could have made outside of, some screen passes and what used to be draw plays, but no one's under center anymore. So the draw play is not nearly as effective to slow down the rush. And Kane Womack said, we got to still take our deep shots. Yeah, but if my offensive lineman can't block your defensive lineman, I can't take deep shots to allow the guys to run 30 or 40 yards down the field, right? I need to get quicker hitting plays to just slow the rush down by a half a step, a quarter of a step, and they did not do that. Now, they missed a couple of deep plays. They had a holding call on a throwback to the tight end that was wide open. That would have been inside the 5. Devin Boyson, apparently dropped a diving catch that was spectacular, and Bradley missed a wide open Boyson for a touchdown. So they had a couple of chances, but Troy's really good. Now, Troy finally getting a week off, right? They have not had a week off. They've been going at it since the beginning of August. So they've been playing for 3 months without a week off. They get the Cajuns, who all of a sudden are playing better. So that's not a for sure deal. Troy's going to have to score more than 10 points, one would think, to beat them, as they just set a school record with 5 touchdown passes in one ball game, or at least tied it, I guess. So they seem to have turned around now that they've settled on it. But you're right. And then an interesting matchup, Army, who seems to have been playing a bunch of Sunbelt teams this year, they're going to get Troy. So here's the thing about making the adjustments. Army's not going to make the adjustments. Army's going to run the football. Army's not going to come in and try to pass against Troy because they can't run the football. If they can't run the football on the first possession, they're going to try it on the second possession, then on the third possession. This past week, they had like 480 yards against ULM. 440 were on the ground. So they'll test Troy's ability to stop that option, and that would be interesting. But you're right. Troy is probably maybe the second best team. That would be a heck of a ball game. Troy versus Auburn. Yeah, that would be a really good football game. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I would hope Troy would
Good
take
call.
a knee late in the game. I'll just say this. I feel a lot of disdain on the part of fans already building. You're going to see an outright explosion or implosion, I think, at Texas A&M. The fans, again, that tradition I'm talking about is loyalty, not the wins. I mean, they've got tradition, but it's not like the upper half of the SEC. And these kids, I mean, trust me, coaches are not going to say it, but I mean, the coaches are just getting hit every hour of every day. I want more money for, and again, what's that line in the Prince song? Seems I've been doing next to nothing for a long time. I mean, you can't pay people in the free market real world for doing next to nothing or nothing. You'll get fired. So I'm not going to be surprised if and you look at Michigan State and some of these other mega contracts, Dave and Jimmy, if maybe these coaches, I don't know, maybe one of them's going to go, I can't get the job done here. I'm going to walk away for half of it. Maybe we'll get lucky, but the fans, that's why I'm asking you about the Sun Belt. What I'm saying is they love these kids. They're getting NIL, I'm sure, but they love football. They're having fun, and the fans are having fun at the games. We got to watch out, people. Again, you look at a lot of fan bases. I think Auburn fans checked out after the Penn State game. They were dead inside. They saw that. And now, as I just got a text from a listener of ours who said, Levon Helm here down in Utah, Alabama. I like this one. He says, now Brian Harsin and the staff are out recruiting because he knows he's on the way out and he doesn't want to be fired for cause. That's an interesting subject to bring up. Dave?
Well, they were out recruiting when they were down here a couple weeks ago. I guess it's just last Monday. They did go to Mobile Christian. They went to Saraland and they went to Viger. So they were down here recruiting some of the big guys. They didn't make it to Baker to see the quarterback. But I guess you could only do, so much in a half a day. So yeah, they were down here recruiting, but it's about time. I know Billy Napier's been in the area a bunch. They got a shot with the kid from Baker. So
yeah.
Billy Napier's not waiting. And Billy Napier did he just flip somebody from Florida State to Florida? That's going to go over well in Tallahassee.
Yeah. I mean, look, you've got to be. You look at the top programs. Billy Napier, he's everywhere. Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin's doing a great job in the portal. I don't know about but you just have to be. If you're Auburn, you have to be saying we're hearing now. In the 8th weekend, the bye week, Auburn's coaches are out recruiting, and where have they been all along? I mean, where are they in Georgia? They're on the side of milk cartons. That's inexcusable. That's cause to me get rid of a coach. You're not out recruiting. I mean, you're going to take all that money. Yeah, there are definitely strings attached to it. Dave, great stuff as always having you on here. I didn't mean to get your blood pressure worked up, but it's fun watching Syracuse. And but man, thank you, and I hope you, and I know you will continue to put out the great coverage on the high school football in Alabama and the Gulf Coast. Let people know how they can follow you and how they can listen to your show every day.
Well, I'm on 3 to 6 p.m. Sports Radio 105.5 WNSP. You can follow me at Schultz. And we're also doing, we just started about in our 5th week of Locked On Sunbelt. So we're doing the podcast Locked On Sunbelt. So I appreciate it, Rob. Have a great day, Jimmy.
You are the Sultan,
the
Sultan of the Sunbelt. Thank you. I love it. All right, let's switch gears. Head over to Athens, Georgia, 24/7 Sports. Jordan Hill, and we're going to talk about the Dogs. Dogs, you pointed it out last week, Jordan. Georgia's undefeated, ranked number 1 in the country. They only have 7 sacks on the year. All they do is win, and they're, you're. I think a lot of people are almost sleeping on Georgia because they're winning and they're not having a bunch of issues. Look at Texas A&M. They're having some problems. They got a close locker room over there in Athens. Kirby Smart, he took the process. He learned a lot from Nick Saban, and his father was a high school coach down in South Georgia. What about Georgia are you concerned with? And they've got Florida Saturday, and Tennessee's got Kentucky Saturday, and then November 5th, that big matchup between the hedges. There's a lot to talk about with Georgia.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think the biggest thing is what you started with, Rob, is this pass rush is, they've affected quarterbacks. They've been in situations where they've gotten after guys, but they haven't had sacks, 7 sacks in 7 games. I think they understand that, again, sacks can't be the be-all, end-all. If you get back there and pressure a quarterback, make him make a mistake, that's still a successful play. But think about the quarterbacks they got coming up. Even, again, this weekend, Anthony Richardson can hurt you if you give him the opportunity. But then after that, Hendon Hooker, Will Rogers, we've seen, I think I looked this up earlier this week. He's 3rd nationally in passing yards, which you would expect with Mike Leach's offense. Yeah. And then Will Levis after that. They have got to make these guys uncomfortable. To me, that's the be-all, end-all. And even too, pass defense, just the coverage. There's been a few issues along the way this year with Kamari Laster, who was the new starter, stepped in for Darion Kendrick, who left, played 1 year at Georgia after starting his career at Clemson. Kind of been a little shaky. He got pulled at one point in that Vanderbilt game. I think it was for a missed tackle. And you saw Kirby kind of letting him know why exactly he was standing there on the sidelines with him. But even Keely Ringo, the guy that was a hero of that national championship game, he's been a little shaky. He's given up a few plays. Had a missed time jumped in that Vanderbilt game that probably should have been about an 89-yard touchdown, and Vanderbilt's receiver just straight up dropped the ball. So to me, it's all about pass defense as far as what concerns me the most about Georgia going into what's effectively the second half of their season.
Yeah, and Florida game coming up. That's been a weird series. I mean, the Spurrier years and then the Zucker, Ron Zook, and Urban Meyer, I think Florida won 18 out of 21. Now, Georgia is the dominant program for sure. What's your concern about this Gator team? Anthony Richardson has no business thinking about the NFL, in my opinion, right now. He's just got to get more reps. Somebody may, like the NBA, offer him a lot of money. You can't blame him if he leaves, but I think he's got a ton of talent, but don't compare him to Cam Newton or anyone like that. His throwing and everything like that, there's issues, but they don't have a signature win in year 1 under Billy Napier. And I don't think it's going to be Georgia. Do you?
No, but I would argue that Utah win, even though Utah still, they beat USC a couple weeks ago. I'd say that's been their best win, but they've been shaky. Probably could have. I mean, they definitely could have. I don't know if they should have lost to South Florida, a South Florida team that's still, really struggling down there.
Yeah.
But, I think it's a situation where, to me, you look at the line, I think it's 22.5 is the last I saw. Vegas isn't in the business of losing money. I mean, usually you need to listen to that sort of thing. And to me, it's not so much Anthony Richardson. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he can make plays. Florida's defense is just going to probably have to have the best game it's had all season. I think that they're very suspect. Their run defense is one of the worst. I think they might be like 90th, something like that in the nation. Just done a very poor job of being able to get off the field. To me, Anthony Richardson's in a situation where he can make plays. I just don't trust that defense.
Jordan, hold these thoughts. We're going to come right back, talk about that third down defense for Florida. It's really weird after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back with Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports Georgia, and Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville. I was watching, Thinking Out Loud with the two guys. They're both Florida grads, I believe, Spencer and Richard, and they were talking about Florida's third down defense last night, and I like that program, man. Those guys, they know football. Don't think they don't. But on 3rd and 1, 3rd and short, Florida's really good. It's 3rd and long that they're so bad. So it just seems that Dan Mullen got fired because he wasn't recruiting enough and they didn't have the players. I mean, it's that simple. But what do you make about that third down defense like that? What does that tell you? How would you attack them?
It tells me that they still got Todd Grantham in that system, Rob. You get him out of there, and there's still those remaining pieces of that defense. I mean, defense has been the problem for Florida. I mean, it's nothing new with Dan Mullen.
Yeah. It's just looking at Florida. Everybody always thinks about what they could be, and right now they're not. But I do think Billy Napier is going to be successful at Florida. I think he's a methodical guy. I didn't expect him to come in this year and go 10-2. They may win 6 or 7 this year. They may not, but I do think long-term he's going to be a good coach. Jimmy, jump in here with Jordan Hill.
Well, as far as Florida goes, I think the best way to describe this season was when Dennis Franchione came to Alabama, and every place he coached, he always referred to his opening season at a program he was trying to fix as year one. And I think this is a classic year one mission for Napier, because when he first got there, his first observations were, we need players and we need a lot more of them. And they clearly are in that situation. They badly need depth. But at the same time, Jordan, you mentioned about the concerns Georgia has in the secondary. And you remember that when Florida played at Tennessee, and you know what a hostile environment that is, Florida rolled up 590 yards of total offense. And if the Gators can come into this game with just a mentality of, we're playing with house money, nobody thinks not only that we can win this game, but that we can be even competitive. And Richardson, if he gets on a roll and gains some confidence, he doesn't care about any of that stuff, being a 3-touchdown underdog or all of that. He probably remembers the success he had in Knoxville that day. And if Florida can get going offensively, they could really make the game competitive. But for me, this is really the opening of the season for Georgia. You know, that Oregon game, that was the first game with the new staff and all that stuff. And look what Kenny Dillingham's done with Bo Nix. I mean, it's amazing, that transformation, and how well coached teams can really improve from game 1 to like game 8. So I think Georgia and Kirby and his staff, I think they're getting into that mindset that right now this is the stretch run. We're playing teams now that can compete with us. The road trip to Kentucky, you know, this game against Florida with Tennessee coming into town. I mean, those are the type of games that you have to be impressive in order to try to repeat that national championship season. So I find this a very interesting matchup, but I think Florida has to play with, hey, we're just going to let it all hang out. We're going to throw everything but the kitchen sink at them. We don't have anything to lose. And if some of these plays start to work, or we put together a couple of long drives, you never know when a team can really gain some confidence and get on a roll.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, to your point, Jimmy, I think really highly of Billy Napier. I think he's going to do a very good job. And two, I think everybody sort of understood the situation as far as year 1. And again, I was really impressed they won that Utah game. I know that they haven't necessarily followed it up and played that well week to week, but I think that he's going to do a good job recruiting. I think it was mentioned, I think Dave mentioned just before I came on, they just flipped a Florida State commit on the offensive line. So obviously that's going to help. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested because I think Florida can make plays on offense. To me, looking at this game, to me, the line's all about that Florida defense is just so suspect. But I think Anthony Richardson could make a lot of plays. And, I think they could find themselves, they did that. And what was a hostile, Neyland Stadium environment when they played Tennessee and played so well. Now you kind of are going to be in a 50-50 split down there in Jacksonville. It's not going to be like the Georgia crowd is really going to be roaring and that crowd noise is going to be an issue for them. I can see them making plays, and I can see them at least making this thing interesting when we get down to the nitty gritty of it.
Historically, this game, pick a game you would compare this one to where Georgia is number 1, Florida's not even ranked, and it didn't go Georgia's way.
I'm trying to think which year was Will Muschamp's last year, and I don't think Georgia was ranked quite that high, but, I mean, it was decided before the game, Georgia can name the score on this one. And Florida ran about 3 run plays the entire game. I mean, the same 3 run plays, and just ran all over Georgia. So that's always sort of my thing with this game. It's cliche to say throw the record book, throw the records out the window. But that's how this rivalry is. And, you've got a lot of guys from Florida on the Georgia team, and I'm sure there's a lot of Georgia guys on the Florida team, and they want those bragging rights, man. This matters. Stetson Bennett was asked about it yesterday. He grew up down in Blackshear, South Georgia. Yeah. And he said, that this was a rivalry as a kid between households. You knew Florida fans, you knew Georgia fans. There was always smack talk. I mean, I'm sure that matters. A guy like Nolan Smith down there in Savannah, I'm sure he grew up around a lot of Florida fans. So, I don't see a situation where Georgia loses this game, but I mean, I don't think Florida's going to come in there and just lay down because Georgia is the number 1 team in the country.
I don't either. And Jordan, I know you got a couple of minutes. You've got to get to another meeting, but by the way, again, we really appreciate what you put out. Stetson Bennett, Nolan Smith, Brock Bowers coming up to the podium, putting that out on Twitter. That's helpful. I mean, it's a lot of quick sound bites. If you've ever been a photographer in the TV news business, don't make 20-second pans with the camera. It makes people nauseous, like car sick. 6 seconds, maybe, 6 seconds. Your stuff is quick, it's to the point, and it's TGJ, True Grit Journalism. So I just want to tell you how much we appreciate that. Look, tell people how they can follow you and look forward to having you back on next week. But you always come prepared, again, like a great trial lawyer, and it shows up every time. Thanks.
Appreciate that, Rob. Yeah, dogs247.com, on Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, and at Twitter at dogs247. So yeah, a lot of good content this week. Florida week. It's always going to be an entertaining one, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I love the rivalry, and it's Jacksonville. I hope they never move the game. Last question: are you for keeping it there, or you want to move it home and home, campus to campus, like they did in the mid-90s?
I'm kind of thinking what Chris Smith said yesterday. He said, basically Jacksonville, home, back to Jacksonville. I think that's what I want, is for them to still play in Jacksonville occasionally, but never been to the Swamp, man. I'd love to see it, and I know those players, even on the Georgia side, would love to see it too.
All right, that's something to think about. Thanks, Jordan. Have a great week.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys.
All right, you bet. Jimmy, let's go over some notes. And you were talking about Kenny Dillingham. I remember when he was at Memphis with Mike Norvell, and he went to Auburn for 1 year, 2019. Bo Nix's first year at Auburn, Bo was really good. And then he went to Florida State for a couple of years. They're back together. Some interesting notes I'm going to throw at you. And just reading through The Athletic yesterday, I think The Athletic is a great source. People, they're not a sponsor of ours, but they put out great content, a lot of great sports writers. All right, let's throw some notes at you. Ohio State, number 2 in the country, is at number 13, Penn State. I mean, Penn State's good. Forget what they did to Auburn. A lot of people did that, are going to, have done that to Auburn lately. That's just almost like they're artificially propping up Penn State just to have another Big Ten team in the rankings. Number 19, Kentucky. At number 3, Tennessee. Number 1, Georgia versus Florida in Jacksonville. Those are good games. All right, Jimmy, here's some interesting notes. Texas A&M has yet to score more than 24 points against a Division I opponent this year. What is it going to take for people to say in year 5 for Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, it ain't going to happen? I mean, what are they waiting on?
Waiting for hopefully that $86 million buyout clause to disappear. That's probably the main thing, and that's not happening. And and there is speculation on the rumor mill that there are some individual donors that are open to getting together and making that buyout. I don't see it happening. I think the PR look would be horrible. I think in reality, I think the Aggies are stuck with Jimbo for another 4 or 5 years. And even then, you would still have 3 years, maybe 4 left on his contract, and the buyout would still be over $30 million. So they're in a situation that nobody else in Division I or in the Power 5 would like to be in.
All right, Jimmy, next question. I'm going to do a little rapid fire here before we go to Brad Logan. I love doing this with you. Cross-examination like in a courtroom. But Jimbo Fisher is 37-18 in his career at Texas A&M. 37-18 in year 5. Kevin Sumlin was fired after year 6. He was 39-16 in his first 55 games. So that's, comparable 55 games each. 37-18 for Jimbo. 39-16 for Kevin Sumlin. Kevin Sumlin never finished worse than 7-5 in a regular season. Okay. With Ole Miss, Florida, Auburn, and LSU, I mean, going 7-5 is going to be difficult for Texas A&M. I just did not buy into the hype. I love having Olin Buchanan. They've changed his schedule around, so it's hard for him to come on with us at this time slot. But I don't dislike him. There's just so many people in the media that buy into the hype. You didn't. I didn't. Shoney didn't.
Well, again, it just comes down to results, and quarterback is really a key issue, because in today's college football world, that's the most important position in the sport. And I mentioned even with Kellen Mond, who broke a lot of Johnny Football's records because he started 50 games over his career. He was never consistent. I mean, he'd have a great game one week, and then the next week just, look horrible, and they could never get that consistency you want from that position. And then other than that, it's just been a musical chairs at quarterback. And in just this past week, and I think the South Carolina game must have rung the bell, because now you're hearing national media people openly question Jimbo Fisher's coaching ability and his lack of progress in being able to develop quarterbacks that can be effective in this league. And it just appears to me the players aren't responding to him. And after an open week and your first play is giving up a 100-yard kickoff return in which about 3 tackles were broken, and then your quarterback throws an interception that's 5 yards away from being a pick six, which he threw off the back foot, which I was noticing this back in the spring. And then they snapped the ball to the quarterback when the quarterback was moving forward to yell an audible to the offensive line. It bounces off his face mask. South Carolina recovers that, and it's 17-0, 5 minutes into the game, and that was the difference in the game. And this came after an open date. So, I mean, there are just so many problems there. It's almost impossible to to name them all. But I will say this, that on Sunday, Tom Luganville said it's probably time to realize that right now A&M is an 8-4 program until they can prove otherwise.
Well, that's true. And then they're not the only one like that. Okay. But I think you're going to see stories start coming out about A&M. It's about this. The locker room is fractured, and there are other locker rooms around the country where NIL, you're giving this money away. It's not being used in the right way. That's my opinion. It's not being used in the right way. It's a pay for play. Don't get around that. Okay. Don't lie. And I think you've got mass dissension. Why am I not playing? I got this much money and blah, blah, blah. You told me this. Promises have always been made, when they shouldn't have, recruiting guys, but now you're throwing around ridiculous amounts of money, and people are bragging about how much their school spends on NIL. You hadn't seen anything yet, because Auburn and Alabama, they're firing up the engines. They're about to get serious with NIL, and they don't like to lose. They're not, A&M thought that they were just going to come in and get it. It's not going to work that way. That's why I think somehow there ought to be some sort of uniform standard. I'm not a socialist, that, but I think Gene Chizik talked about it a year ago, before it became the law on the Paul Feinbaum show. He said, in the NFL, everybody in that locker room, what you make, and a lot of guys make more than the head coach does. In college, you're united. You start paying guys money, and they all know what each other are getting. Not that it hadn't been things going on before, but you're going to have a hard time holding that locker room together. And if you start losing, and the reason you start losing probably is because you don't have all the guys, rowing in the same direction, you got problems. So there are a lot of dumpster fires on the horizon in college football. Franz Beard pointed it out, our great friend from GatorbaitMedia.com, the Iron Duke. He said, we're going to have some of these things just blow up, meltdowns, to get through this. And that's what we're starting to see. I look at trends. I look at charts on financial markets. I've been doing it a long time, and I'm pretty damn good at it. I'm pretty smart. That's what's happening. You're going to start seeing some blow-ups, because you can't give 18 and 19-year-old kids money. Would you do it with your own kids? Of course not. And you can't keep asking fans to donate money to your fundraising arms and then flush that money down the toilet to buy out horrible coaching hires. You need to start docking the pay and holding the people accountable who made these hires to begin with, starting with university presidents, board of trustee members that allow it to happen, athletic directors. You screw around and you let some search firm try and tell you to hire some goofball that doesn't know come here from Sikkim when it comes to being in the South, you're going to regret it. That's the way it is. That's the way this business works. Go hire good people, hold them accountable. We're all held accountable. You're in a marriage, you're held accountable. You work in business, you're held accountable. You eat what you kill, and we're putting the cart before the horse. Nobody else will say it. I'll say it. It's a bunch of crapola. and it's a mess, and we better find a way to fix it, and I know we will. We're going to talk about it right after this quick break with more on Sidelines after this.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Jimmy, let's look down now. Again, NIL. You make money, I would just say defer it, put it away so it's not all there. But you look at the programs that are bragging about we're just throwing money out and just dumping money in everybody's lap. You got very likely you got a bunch of kids that suddenly aren't that hungry. And not that, look, adults, yeah, you're an adult. You've earned that right. You're 18, 19 years old. You're still a kid. You're an adult technically, but I'm just saying if it's all about the money and not about you getting better and getting an education and working hard every day to be part of a team, it's going to blow up. And we're seeing that happen. All right, Jimmy, Miami 3-4 just got drilled 45-21 at home in Miami. Not that they ever have had a home field advantage, really. 45-21. Mario Cristobal, 10-year, $80 million deal. I mean, come on. I don't care if this is year 1 or year 5. You can't have your team better prepared with the talent you've got. And, I mean, everybody's getting NIL money there. Doesn't that make you automatically better? How do they lose to Duke? I mean, but the players he left behind at Oregon ranks 7th in the nation on that blue chip index. That's 4-star and 5-star players in a 4-year cycle. They're 7th most talented team. They've only given up 1 sack at Oregon in 7 games. And they're throwing the ball like 35 times a game. Kind of, what's your takeaway from all that?
Well, I think even USC defensively is not good. I don't think there are any dominating defenses by any means in the Pac-12. But again, I think really what it comes down to is, again, each school, each alumni group, their collectives and all of that, coming up with just a sound plan on how to deal with this. And I think Texas Tech has done something that I think makes the most sense. They announced before the season began this year that they would be paying all 85 scholarship players and 20 walk-ons $25,000 a year. Now, that doesn't count NIL deals for other players. But having a baseline of that figure, I think is not out of hand at all when you look at the reality of the players going to class, doing a full load academically, and then playing at the Power Five level, which it takes a lot of time, a lot of pressure, and so even the lowest rung players, and I don't mean to say that in a derogatory term, but the players that aren't as talented as the stars on a team, they're still getting a baseline amount of money so that they can live comfortably, and then the other guys are going to have separate NIL deals. I think something like that, especially at the larger programs, would do a lot to prevent any possible disruption in locker room chemistry, like you're obviously seeing at Texas A&M and some places where quarterbacks are getting outrageous amounts of money on NIL deals, and then other players are getting nothing.
Yeah, and I think that this has to happen, and we saw it coming. Who didn't see this coming? And again, you're going to be hearing a lot about the Texas A&M mess. They're having some players suspended. It's just it is what I expected to happen, and it's happening. And the sooner we can cycle through this, we can come up with a sensible solution. But we need to get back to college football coaches are there to coach football and mentor, and don't you get all caught up in who your coach is and you want to know every detail of his life. You want Mr. Rogers as your coach? Go hire Gus Malzahn. I want a winner. I want somebody like a Lane Kiffin that will find a way to win under any circumstances. Brad Logan's on the line with us right now. And Brad, we can, let's talk about Ole Miss and Mississippi State, Jackson State. A lot going on in the state of Mississippi. But first, I want to talk about Mississippi State. I think now that's a couple of losses in a row at Kentucky, at Alabama. Those aren't easy places to play, but where do you think State finishes out the season? What kind of record are you going to give them? Yeah. Yeah, and now Ole Miss going down there to Baton Rouge, get beat 45-20. I saw in the Auburn game, Auburn scored 34 points. I'm like, man, if Auburn can score points on you with that offense, it hadn't done anything. That tells me Ole Miss can be scored upon by a team that wants to get physical. What are your concerns right now? Ole Miss, obviously, that was they're 7-1, number 15 in the country. Their schedule was back end loaded. I hate the way this happens with schools because all year long, you're getting the wins, yet you are wondering, your fans are in the media, how good are they? But Ole Miss 7-1 has 4 really tough games, starting with a trip to College Station and that mess going on out there Saturday against Texas A&M. Yeah, it is going to be a wild one. I look for Ole Miss to go get the win. But Jimmy Hodge jump in here with Brad Logan right now, Logan Media. And, Ole Miss is banged up. Everybody's banged up right now. I also look for, hopefully, Zach Evans to play in this game. But, Jimmy, jump into this conversation.
Yeah, well, I can't hear what Brad was saying, but from your question, I got a good idea that it was about the chances of each team coming into this game. And I think this is a classic matchup in which Ole Miss's defense and A&M's offense, which are the two weak spots on each roster or each program, will be a really interesting matchup because offensively A&M, except for the Alabama game in which, they played like a top 5 team. But since then, they've just looked absolutely horrible. They really have no passing game to speak of. Their young receivers that were just magnificent against Alabama, Stewart and Mohammed, haven't had that type of production the last couple of weeks, although Stewart's a great player. Mohammed hasn't done as much. But the quarterback issues at A&M, I think, are just going to be too much to overcome.
Yeah.
Even bad as Ole Miss has been defensively the last 2 weeks because they've given up, I think, over 600 or almost 700 yards in the last 2 games in rushing yards combined. And I don't know if A&M can even take advantage of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Having some technical issues right now, we're trying to work through. So Brad, if you can hear me, we're going to send you another link to try to use here. But I look around at Ole Miss in particular, going out to play at College Station. I don't know if Jimbo Fisher is going to be able to do enough in a short period of time to get a team to show up focused. They go on the road, and somebody put out on social media one night before the A&M South Carolina game about, you think South Carolina can get the upset over A&M? And I replied, do you think that's an upset? I didn't. South Carolina's, I think, won 4 games in a row. And I just think that people are buying into all this hype about A&M because they have the number 1 recruiting class, 7 5-stars, NIL money, and all that kind of stuff. But in reality, I just think that Texas A&M is a program. I think Ole Miss goes out there and gets the win. I look for them to be a different team. Hopefully, they're going to be a healthier team, and they've got running backs, Zach Evans, Quinshon Judkins, Jackson Dart is a quarterback. He can run. It's a good Ole Miss team. I think they're capable of getting the win. I do think that will happen. Bottom line is this league, and Brad, I don't know if you can hear me. We've had some sort of technical. It's storming like crazy where we are, but I think Ole Miss can go out there and get the win. As for Mississippi State, their running game's improved. They've gone from 44 the first year, 65 to about 105 yards a game average. I don't know what it is now after the Alabama game, but golly, the SEC, they're throwing the ball more than anybody. They're throwing the ball. I think, Will Rogers, again, he broke that all-time record for completions 24 games earlier than Aaron Murray did in his career as a 4-year starter at Georgia. So that one's kind of a surprise when you break it down. I think, though, the lack of a running game, look at Ole Miss's running game, look at Alabama's running game, Brad, I think that might be the biggest issue of all. So that might be the biggest issue of all is, Jimmy, and anybody will tell you this. Brad, let me know when you are back on here with us. And Brad, are you there? Okay. But teams that can't run the ball are going to be they're going to struggle. But Ole Miss with Zach Evans, Quinshon Judkins, kid out of Park Crossing, right outside of Montgomery. That's a powerful tandem they have in the backfield. and Jackson Dart ran for 107 yards when they got the win, 48-34 over Auburn, October 15th. So Brad Logan, back here with us right now. We've got a tremendous storm going on up here right now. That may be the issue, but Quinshon Judkins, where do you rank him? Is he freshman of the year candidate in the SEC, player of the year of all freshmen?
Well, the SEC has had a ton of freshmen this year, but I don't know if there's been anyone that's made a bigger impact on their program than Quinshon Judkins. You know, until Zach Evans got hurt midway through the Auburn game, it was pretty much the Evans and Quinshon Judkins show. Now, we saw at LSU where he was able to get 111, I think, of the 116 rushing yards for Ole Miss against LSU. So it was pretty much him all the way. Before we got cut off, we were talking about the Texas A&M game, and I think the number one thing going in for Ole Miss is who's going to be healthy. And I think with Evans hurt on offense, they've got a beat-up offensive front. They've got two right tackles, Micah Pettis and Jaden Williams, that were both exposed by LSU's defense. So there's a lot of unanswered questions on offense. Now, we talked earlier about the defense, and just kind of reiterate a little bit there. J.J. Pegues is dealing with a left ankle injury. Cedric Johnson's dealing with a right ankle injury. Troy Browne, the linebacker, is dealing with a right shoulder issue. A.J. Browne left the game with a concussion. I understand every SEC team's got their bumps and bruises, but Ole Miss is really feeling it right now. So going into College Station, the question is what team are they going to be facing? Because last I heard by TexAgs.com, and Billy Lucci had pointed out that, you know, Jimbo, I think it had suspended 3 or 4 players already. Yeah. So they're already without their starting quarterback. They were playing a walk-on against South Carolina. Suffice to say, if Ole Miss does not win this game in College Station, I don't know if they win another game. So it's and reverse that, Jimbo may be coaching for his job, because Ross Bjork, the athletic director, made the decision to extend Jimbo Fisher without anyone coming after him for an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah.
If they have to fire him and pay him a king's ransom, I would hate to be Ross Bjork going to work the next day, because I would think his job would be in jeopardy as well. A lot of things kind of circling within both programs right now. I'm just pointing this out. If Ole Miss doesn't win Saturday, I don't know if I see another win on the schedule.
Brad, hold those thoughts, and we're going to come back to you and sound great now. And I think you're on to something. And of course, the $64,000 question is, you let $85 million walk out the door to get rid of Jimbo as an AD, you're gone with him. So anyway, we'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne back with Brad Logan, Logan Media Network, Jimmy Hodge. And Brad, looking at the schedule, the thought of Ole Miss, they're 7-0 and they're ranked in the top 10. And for someone who knows Ole Miss like you do, and Mississippi State and all things Mississippi, that if they don't win Saturday, they may not win another game. Of course, you know, they've got Alabama after that. Then they got Arkansas. They got Mississippi State. Back end loaded schedule. You love it and you hate it. You get off to a great start, but you know eventually you're going to have to file taxes. That's how this feels.
Yeah, and it actually has helped this team. I mean, Ole Miss was loaded with transfers. It had a transfer quarterback. It had transfer running backs, had a transfer offensive lineman. The defense is full of them. So the earlier part of the schedule really helped a lot. You're able to get a lot of players adjusted to the system. The downside of that, obviously, is that you face a pretty difficult schedule. Now, if Ole Miss plays the way it did against Auburn, Kentucky, Central Arkansas, and Troy, and the rest of the teams, they should be okay in College Station. I mean, they need to get this win. If they go out to College Station, they get a win. They are 8-1 hosting Alabama. I mean, if you told anybody that had a pulse that supported Ole Miss that the Rebels will be 8-1 hosting Alabama, they would have taken it in a heartbeat. It'll be top 10 teams and everything's hunky-dory. If Ole Miss is 7-2 hosting Alabama, they're going to lose to go to 7-3. They never play well at Arkansas. Arkansas is going to smell blood. That's probably 7-4, and now you're beaten and battered and hosting a Mississippi State team that under Mike Leach has never beaten you. And State's kind of catching their stride right now. I think they've got a couple of wins down the stretch. I think they're going to beat Auburn. I think they'll beat Middle Tennessee State. And an opportunity to get to, 8 wins on the season, that would be a really good year for Mike Leach. They would love to be 8-4 with a win over Ole Miss and go to a Florida Bowl game. That would be a huge win for Mississippi State. So this road that Ole Miss is on right now is going to go of one of two ways. They're either going to win on Saturday, kind of right the ship. They've got an off week prior to Alabama. They'll get a ton of people back prior to the Alabama game. So College game day probably coming, a big, big celebration, this, that, and the other. Or all of a sudden you lose that game. Then you're beaten and battered. You're into a bye week, a very difficult situation. And then all of a sudden, you got Alabama coming. So this thing's probably going to go a couple of different ways.
Yeah. Well, you laid out a case for either way, but the one where if Ole Miss doesn't win Saturday, they may not win another game. You hate hearing that. I want to see Ole Miss close out strong, but Lane Kiffin, that might, in a crazy sort of way, you won't hear talk about him leaving. I don't think he's leaving anyway. I think he loves it at Ole Miss. He's got a great job, and you look at other jobs that people try to think he would leave for. Are they really better jobs? Maybe historically the answer would be yes, but currently with environments and toxic boosters and not people fighting amongst each other, I think he's in a much better place, and I think he's building a foundation at Ole Miss that he can win with for a long, long time. Jimmy, jump back in here with Brad Logan.
Yeah, Brad, I think on the other side of the coin, if A&M were to lose this game, I think the only win I see for them the rest of the way would be against UMass. And, that's not what the A&M power brokers were paying for. And I think actually this game could match up favorably for Ole Miss in the fact they're playing on the road, because when you're struggling like A&M is, and the performance of your coach has become a national subject of discussion, I think all the pressure's on the home team, especially when you've been as bad offensively as they are. Their quarterback situation, to be polite, is extremely shaky. And I tell you what, I think they're going to have a tough time producing points in this matchup. And I just think the team that has the better offense, which in this case is Ole Miss, even though A&M's defense is good, I don't think Ole Miss is going to have to score a large number of points to come out on top in this one.
Jimmy, look, A&M, they haven't scored more than 24 points, against a Division I team this year. And by the way, who are the geniuses that come up with all this FBS, FCS? Why can't we just say D1, D2, and D3? I mean, that is just people trying to justify their jobs. I mean, I'm going to call it. They hadn't scored more than 24 points against a Division I team this year. There are 131 of them with James Madison. I don't see them getting into a shootout with Ole Miss and winning. Ole Miss jumped out, 17-3 at LSU, Jimmy? How do you explain how a team jumps out to a lead like that, other than that LSU adjusted and Ole Miss didn't? But Lane Kiffin's a great player,
Well, we saw the exact same thing happen the week before against Auburn. I mean, Ole Miss jumped out 21-0, looked like they were on course to maybe a 49-10 win. And then the next thing you know, it's 28-24, and Ole Miss is hanging on for dear life and really didn't really pull away until they executed that perfect onside kick that gave them a free possession and allowed them to extend the lead to 38-24, and then they were okay from that point on. But when you blew that lead, or almost did, against an Auburn team with the problems they're having, that was a lot of smoke there. And usually behind smoke, there's fire, but yet they jump out 17-3 on LSU, and then Ole Miss closes the game with a 42-3 run, in which for the better part of the last three quarters, they just dominated up front against Ole Miss on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, LSU closed out with a 42-3 run. Yeah, that's the scary part. I mean, you see that you're down 17-3, and you come back 42-3. And Brian Kelly, this guy is going to win a lot of games at LSU. What about Jaden Daniels? He's not a great passer. He's mobile. He can run. How much improvement can he make before they play Alabama? That's where he's gonna get hit a lot. He's gonna be rushed a lot. That's what Alabama does. They put a ton of pressure on the quarterback. And you saw what they did to Will Rogers. Alabama broke up 15 passes. I mean, 15 broken up passes against Mississippi State. Yeah, they throw the ball more than anybody else. So you're going to have more opportunities. But those are some good athletes to make that. And 4 sacks. Now, the week before against Tennessee, much better team. Brad Logan made a point. Tennessee may be the best team in college football. They really might. And they got, outside of Will Anderson Jr.'s name on the stat sheet after the loss at Tennessee, was a 0. Okay? 0 tackles, sacks. He didn't do. You have to show up. I mean, Gary Harris will tell you that. Rodney Orr will tell you that. You have to show up in those kind of games. But Jimmy, I see where Brad's going. If Ole Miss doesn't win at Texas A&M against just a dumpster fire of a team, and I think they've got dissension. You can tell they're not playing together. They're not having fun. Look, I don't want to hear. There's things I don't ever want to hear after a team gets beat. We had a bad day. You had a bad day because the other team beat you and made you look bad. So, and don't blame the weather. Okay, it rains on both teams. Okay, the officials, look, that stuff evens out. Okay, injuries. Everybody's banged up this time of year, Jimmy. You know that. This is a critical game for Ole Miss because it's the next game. But man, you think it's likely that Ole Miss, if they don't win, I mean, Brad, I got a lot of respect for Brad Logan. You think Ole Miss, they don't win Saturday, really could lose the rest of the games? I think that is a real possibility. Jimmy?
Oh, I thought you were asking Brad.
No,
I think they absolutely could lose the rest of the games. I mean, you're going to Arkansas, who last year had a chance to win and went for a 2-point conversion, a shovel pass that didn't work. And I think that took some air out of the Arkansas balloon at the end of the year last year, although they still had a great year. But I can promise you that Arkansas is laying in the woods waiting for Ole Miss, preferably after an Ole Miss loss to A&M, if that were to happen, where Ole Miss would really be trying to search for answers. And I want to tell you something, that crowd in Fayetteville is going to be prime. They are not going to be rolling out the red carpet for the Rebels. I can promise you. And then you're talking about, a game against State in which, the first game 2 years ago in Leach's opening season in Starkville, the difference was a 100-yard pick six late in the first half that turned out being the difference in the game. And then last year, State really had some problems catching the ball, and it was raining pretty hard the whole ball game. And when you rely on the passing game like State, and that's not working, man, you don't have a lot of margin for error. So I think State will really be focused on this game in Oxford, and if Ole Miss is working on a 3 or 4 game losing streak, I think State could smell some blood there.
Yeah, and again, Jimmy, the back end loading of schedules. Brad made a good point. Ole Miss had all these guys coming in from the transfer portal. Lane Kiffin brought in again one of the top 2-3 classes in the country. You want to give those guys time to gel with one another, but you also like to be tested early on. Georgia opening game plays Oregon, and again they win 49-3. Bo Nix and Oregon are not playing week in and week out as tough a competition as you get in the SEC, but they are winning, and they're not giving up sacks. The bottom line is they're improving, and that's all that matters. And Kenny Dillingham working with Bo Nix, they're having tremendous success. Hell, I hope Bo does well. I just know that most of his best plays at Auburn were busted plays because he really didn't have much offensive line protection. It's tough. I mean, it's very difficult. Jimmy, Rodney Orr's going to be joining us here. He's running a little bit late today, Tighter Insider. You go back to Arkansas. KJ Jefferson, if you're the Arkansas coaches, how many times can you tell him, hey, man, don't run the ball so much. We've got to have you. Malik Hornsby, the backup, he's fast as lightning. He's been playing some wide receiver. He just wants to be on the field, and I understand that. But KJ Jefferson, Arkansas is a completely different team when he's on the field. They're coming down to play Auburn, the 11 a.m. game. That typically favors the visiting team. If you are Arkansas, you jump on top of Auburn 14-0, 17-0. Auburn's just not built to come from behind. They got on top of LSU 17-0 and couldn't score again the rest of the night.
Yeah, and I think Arkansas's got some additional incentive the way that that Auburn game ended at Jordan-Hare 2 years ago. There are quite a few players remaining from that team, and I can guarantee you they feel like they have a score to settle there. But yeah, with KJ Jefferson in the lineup, I mean, Arkansas is a truly different team, and I think they play with a lot more confidence when he's in the lineup. I mean, we saw what happened at Mississippi State when he wasn't able to play in that game. Is very similar to Kentucky when Will Levis wasn't able to play against South Carolina. When you don't have your starting quarterback, I mean, it can just totally disrupt an offense. And to be truthful, there aren't many teams that are deep enough to where it doesn't affect you.
Yeah. Let's go to Tuscaloosa. Am I reading this right? Mildred? Rodney or Tighter Insider? Oh, Rodney. No, I had to say that. Look, we've been having some big storms this weekend at the Red River Ford Toyota Worldwide Studios, and so we just make sure you were still on the line. Hope you're doing well. Love having you on. You and Gary Harris, that Tuesday night TV show, WVUA TV 23, 6:30 p.m. Central, folks. Watch it. Subscribe to Tighter Insider. It's only $48 a year. And for 26 years, ain't nobody better than Rodney Orr covering the Crimson Tide. Rodney, the world is ready to listen with all three of my ears. Let's talk about Alabama. Got the win. Came back like I thought they would against Mississippi State. But what were your takeaways from that? And looking ahead, got a lot of big ones. Yeah. Rodney, look, let me ask you this. We're gonna take a quick commercial break here in just a minute. I'm gonna send you a link to call back. We're having some technical issues today. If you can call back on that link that we send you, that'll work, and we're gonna send it to you right now because you've got too much good stuff to say. And Jimmy and I and everybody want to hear about it because Alabama, you go back and they showed up. They had, again, dominant defensive performance. Mississippi State did move the ball, but they only got that one touchdown with 1 second left. And I think that was the first touchdown that Mississippi State has scored in Tuscaloosa since 2014. And I think they were ranked number 1 in the country. I believe that was because that was that first year of the college football playoffs. Yeah. So we're gonna come back and again, we want people to be able to hear what Rodney has to say. But I think with Alabama, people are so quick to say when they have a loss or they play and they don't win by 6 touchdowns, the dynasty is dead. They're in trouble. The dam is leaking. No, they play in the toughest league in America week in and week out. You have to be able to see firsthand. Rodney, real quick before we go to the break, are you happy with Alabama this season as a team on a scale of 1 to 5? How are they a 1 being very average for your standards, and 5 they could be a national contender? Okay. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back with more Rodney Orr and Jimmy Hodge on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Right, Rob Browne back with Jimmy Hodge, and Rodney Orr will be joining us momentarily at Tighter Insider. Jimmy, you know a thing or two about Alabama. You look at the way they responded, and they got the win. Went down against a pretty good Mississippi State team. Wasn't a top 5, top 10 matchup, but it was at home. And mentally, I think Alabama came out of the game feeling like, okay, we can still dominate a quality opponent. But how good is Mississippi State? Brad thinks they can end up winning 8 games.
Yeah, well, I thought the biggest development was that the coaching staff made the decision to start Eli Ricks at cornerback. And even on Todd McShay's draft board, he's like one of the top 10 corners in the country, despite the fact that he had not started a game this year. Reportedly, he was having trouble picking up the defensive scheme. But all I know is that when they turned the lights on in a game situation, he just completely shut down anybody that he was covering. On the very first play of the game, they attempted a slant pattern. He knocked it down. It set the tone for Alabama secondary, breaking up 15 passes in the game. And Ricks was a big part of that. He's an elite NFL prospect. And I think that kind of ends the argument as to whether if a player's not great in practice, if he's got that ability and he's a different player on game day, that's the type of guy you got to have out there. You got a lot of guys who are really good in practice, but don't get it done in the game. Sean Alexander was notorious for not being a very good practice player, but on game day, I mean, he was an NFL caliber player, and I think that applies at a couple of different positions on this Alabama team. In my mind, notably center.
Well, looking at Alabama and the schedule that they have left, they've still got to play that big game with Ole Miss, and everybody is talking about it. There's people. I think some fan bases early on, they checked out. I mean, football, they were dead inside. And in week 3, Auburn comes to mind. Just the Penn State game was so bad and just revealed and exposed what's wrong with Auburn and what they don't have on offense and defense, and it's tough. But then you look at Alabama, they've got the number 1 roster on the 24/7 blue chip composite index of the 4- and 5-star players that have been signed in every 4-year cycle. So you're Alabama, you've got coaching, you've got player development, Jimmy. You can fix it. Okay. You look at a program like Arkansas, Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, a regular every Thursday with us at 8 a.m. for the ECS House Industries Razorback Report. Talks about 1 through 22, pretty good. 23 to 44, okay. It's that 45 to 85. Man, they need 2 full recruiting classes, top 15 or better, to be able to compete in the SEC. You can be 15th in the country and 10th in the SEC. That's the league that we are in. Kentucky looked like they were a pretty good team. They go on the road, get a win, Jimmy, in the swamp. But they go down. They were banged up. Ole Miss got a 2 or 3 point win in Oxford. Was that the canary in the coal mine telling you, again, nobody knows until they play the toughest games how good a team is. But did that make you think twice about, hey, is Ole Miss really a top 10 team? If
it did.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It did me. Yeah.
I thought Ole Miss was the better team. I mean, Kentucky was the better team. I mean, it looked like they were going to score on a 90-yard kickoff return, and you have a blocker who's trying to catch up with the young wide receiver, the returner Browne, to help give him a block, and he inadvertently ran into him and tripped him, and prevented what would have been a 90-yard kickoff for a return touchdown. And then at the end of the game, they threw a touchdown pass that would have won the game, but since Kentucky was in the hurry-up offense, and they don't play a hurry-up offense normally in the game, but since it was near the end, they went to it. They threw a touchdown pass, but their slot man was in motion. He didn't get set for that full second, and that nullified the go-ahead touchdown pass. And then on the next play, Levis got sacked, fumbled, and Ole Miss recovered it to win the ball game. So yeah, I mean, that certainly gave me some concerns. But what really made it obvious, though, was when an Auburn team that was just in total disarray fell behind 21-0 in Oxford, and then it's not 10 minutes later that the lead's been cut to 28-24. That told you right there that that Ole Miss defense wasn't nearly as good as people thought it was coming into that game.
Yeah, and again, we have Yancey Porter also covers Ole Miss for us and talked about the depth on the defensive line. But when Auburn ran for 300 yards against Ole Miss, that's when I felt like, okay, they've got some issues. Every team does, but we're seeing it now. And Ole Miss could go from being 7-0 to 7-5. If this is a critical game because it's the next game, but also because of the potential shift in momentum that they have. All right, Jimmy, want to switch? Look, Missouri travels to South Carolina. They barely won against Vanderbilt, 17-14. You don't hear a lot about Missouri. Eli Drinkowitz, those 3 games, at Auburn, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. That was disgusting. The Georgia loss, that was sickening. but they put it together, went on the road the next week and outplayed and outgained, out time of possession Florida in the Swamp, and they lost. Now they're going to play at South Carolina, the Battle of Como. 4 straight wins for South Carolina. Let's talk about the play of Spencer Rattler, the South Carolina team. I like Shane Beamer. He would be a lot of fun to play for. He's a rah-rah, up-tempo guy, but he's tough. He's tougher than people want to realize, but I think his library of knowledge, all the coaches start with his father, Frank Beamer, 29 years up on the mountain, Smith Mountain, Blacksburg, Virginia Tech. He grew up with that, but he's learned from Steve Spurrier. He's learned from Lincoln Riley. What do you think about this game? I don't think it's a shoe-in because it's in Columbia, South Carolina.
No, I mean, South Carolina's just finding ways to win. They're not, in my mind, overly impressive. I think Rattler's been average. Nothing special. Obviously, he doesn't have the receivers he had at Oklahoma. But he's, shown more maturity, much more of a team player. And I think he's realized that he doesn't have the talent to work with in Columbia that he did, in Norman. But also, I think Missouri has shown their ability to go into hostile environments and play well. I think it's going to be a close game, but just you have to go on what's happened this year. South Carolina has won close games. Missouri has not. So I'd have to go with South Carolina. But, I mean, it's a game that Missouri could win if they could just make that one big play when they need to.
Yeah, and Jimmy, Eli Drinkowitz, this is his 3rd year at Missouri, 2nd year for Shane Beamer. You always say, well, what's a ceiling on a program? Well, South Carolina, under Steve Spurrier, won 11 games 3 years in a row, 2011, 12, and 13. And when you have a Marcus Lattimore and Stephen Garcia and Jadeveon Clowney, there was a lot of talent on those rosters. I get that. Missouri is doing something. They're getting serious about NIL, and there are a lot of players in St. Louis and East St. Louis and the state of Missouri, a lot more than you think. But man, they definitely Eli Drinkowitz teams play a full 60. I think this game's going down to the 4th quarter. I don't see South Carolina winning, 42 to 10. That's the way these two teams are built. I really do. And Jimmy, kind of looking ahead right now, Auburn and Arkansas. Arkansas, I mean, they've got their better situation at quarterback, running back. I don't know who you give it to because Auburn's offensive line, but Auburn's offensive line went up against Ole Miss on the road, and they rushed for like 300 yards against what we thought was, a fairly deep defensive line for Ole Miss. Make some sense out of Auburn, Arkansas, the 11 a.m. Central SEC Network game Saturday.
Well, I think, again, Arkansas is going to be coming into this game with a lot of confidence because they do have Jefferson. And, Auburn is just trying to figure a lot of things out, first of all, just with their offense. And I think if Arkansas can score in the high 20s to low 30s, they'll be in good shape. But, we all know strange things happen at Jordan-Hare, so you just don't know what's going to happen for sure. But I'm sure the money on Vegas is pretty solidly with Arkansas here. But again, the 11 a.m. start and the fact that Arkansas is going to be, they have a lot of players that are going to remember how that game ended 2 years ago with Jordan-Hare. And I think it's going to give them some extra incentive. And I think it will the coaching staff as well. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be competitive because Auburn, I mean, they've shown that they play hard for Harsin. They just don't always execute very well, but I'd have to give the edge to Arkansas.
Yeah, something tells me Auburn's going to play their most complete game of the year Saturday against Arkansas. And I think you're starting to see, again, I'm ready for Auburn to move on, get a coach that wants to be there, that understands what he's up against. And I will never pull for Auburn to lose because I may or may not like a particular coach. So but I think Auburn plays their most complete game of the year. I think the players do play hard for Brian Harsin. And I think if I'm Auburn on that team, Tank Bigsby, Jarquez Hunter, Damari Austin, those running backs, Robbie Ashford, he's a great athlete at quarterback. I think Auburn comes out and plays their best. And I don't know if that's going to be good enough to beat Arkansas. Arkansas, when they went on the road and they beat a pretty good BYU team, but they just had better athletes up and down the roster. And Arkansas's roster is not considered to be one of the top upper half in the SEC. Auburn's is barely. But you just wonder, they have enough to take a fight. Okay, Jimmy, wrapping up here right now. We lost Rodney. We've had a big storm come through here today through wind into Memphis and what have you. But bottom line, looking up and down the SEC, you got Tennessee with Kentucky and Knoxville Saturday. I think Tennessee, just like Georgia with Florida, better not be looking ahead. You know, Kentucky has not done it in a long time, and that is go on the road and get a win versus the top 5 opponent. I mean, look at Notre Dame's record in the last 25 years against top 5 teams. What is it, 1-23, 1-24? It's hard to do. I see Kentucky giving Tennessee fits in the first quarter. Tennessee's offense gets cranked up and pulls away in the second quarter, and in the second half, they're playing a lot of players, just getting ready for Georgia. Kentucky's just not there, and it's just JKA, just Kentucky being Kentucky.
I don't know. I mean, I like Kentucky up front on both sides of the ball, and they're a different team when Will Levis is in a quarterback. They obviously have to have some sustained 10, 12, 14 plus play drives that result in points, not only to build their confidence, but also to keep the Tennessee offense off the field, although that doesn't seem to bother them very much because of their big play capability. But I think Kentucky's going to be running a scheme, a lot of zone coverage to keep the receivers from running by them like they did against Alabama. And unlike Alabama, I think Kentucky will make adjustments to make a Tennessee throw underneath and keep the receivers in front of them. But, yeah, I mean, I think Kentucky's going to play really well. And I'm kind of like Frank that that line is 11, and I'm really tempted. If I were a betting man, I'd take those 11 points because I think Kentucky's going to play real well. Don't think they'll win the game, but I think Tennessee's going to be aware that they played a full 60 minutes of football.
Yeah, another thing is Tennessee's secondary, they're weak. Will Levis, have the arm to stretch them out and to put a lot of stress on them. I look at Tennessee, they can run the ball, and I look for Tennessee probably to run the ball more than usual Saturday. I won't be surprised just to eat up clock and to wear Kentucky down. I wouldn't be surprised to see 35-24 Tennessee. That's, and again, probably a close game early, but it's still a win. I mean, that's obviously, but I don't know if Tennessee's the best team in the country. We're going to find out Saturday what they do against Kentucky. If things hold, serve, Tennessee wins Saturday, Georgia wins, you're going to have 1 versus 3 or 1 versus 2, depending on who, what happens with Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, all these teams. I think Tennessee they're pushing. Josh Heupel, you compare the 4 greatest offenses in the, playoff era or whatever. Alabama in 2018 had 375 points through 7 games. Tennessee's at like 351. I think that's tied with what LSU did in 2019. This Tennessee team, their defense isn't great, but they're good enough. And again, they can beat you with 22 minutes time of possession, anywhere from 15 to 22 minutes time of possession. And their defense isn't on the field. They're on the field a lot more than their average team is, and that's probably why they give up so many points. I'm not. That's not surprising. Anyway, great show today. Had a lot of fun. Got this storm behind us. Go out and help. Give the expectation to get nothing in return. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And again, give us a follow on Twitter at @sidelines_live. We're here Monday through Saturday, sidelines.live. Check us out. See you tomorrow.